The night my life split open didn't look extraordinary. That's the trick. Pain rarely announces itself. It arrives wearing normal clothes. The restaurant we were in, Linden House, was a place my family loved because it made them feel expensive. Crystal chandeliers, faint jazz, waiters who carried plates like they were handling museum artifacts. The kind of place where everyone whispered but their judgments screamed. We were gathered for my sister's engagement dinner. Family only, the invitation said, though they extended it to me with a tone that suggested they were being charitable. I sat at the edge of the long table, close enough to participate, far enough that no one had to look at me. Then came the moment. My brother Evan rose to make his toast. He always loved being the center of attention, especially when there was a chance to belittle me while disguising it as Lockwood humor. He held up his glass and scanned the table like an emperor serving peasants. "To the future of the Lockwood legacy," he declared, "and to our real, original members." He paused, letting the anticipation build. Then, with a smirk so polished it glowed, "and to our add-on sibling who, let's be honest, never really fit into this family." The table erupted in laughter. My mother covered her mouth in a mock gasp. My father chuckled like it was harmless banter. Even my sister, glowing with engagement excitement, smiled awkwardly. Evan leaned closer, lowering his voice, but loudly enough that the whole table heard. "An adopted girl like you doesn't belong here." Laughter. Actual, genuine laughter. Like he'd told a clever joke instead of slicing me open. I felt my cheeks burn, but my voice stayed flat. I lifted my water glass slightly. A toast to invisible walls. And as if the universe wanted to be cruelly poetic, the waiter chose that moment to place the full bill in front of me. A bill that shouldn't have been mine. A bill that was practically a month's rent. A bill they expected me to pay because that's what I always did. My family didn't look surprised. Of course, the add-on would pay. I opened my purse with mechanical movements. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me flinch. But then, stop. The voice didn't boom. It didn't rise. It didn't tremble. It cut. Every head snapped toward the end of the table where my grandfather, Samuel Lockwood, sat gripping his cane. His eyes, sharp as broken glass, locked on Evan. "That is enough," he said. "From all of you." Silence dropped like a stone. Evan laughed nervously. "Grandpa, come on." Samuel slammed the tip of his cane on the hardwood floor. The sound vibrated through the entire room. I said, "Enough." I felt something shift under the table. Not hope. No, hope was too soft. Something heavier. Something with edges. Something that had been waiting years to break open. People assume childhood wounds fade if you ignore them long enough. They don't. They settle. They calcify. Then one day someone pokes them, and your whole body remembers. I was 6 when I entered the Lockwood home. 6 when my biological parents died in a highway collision on I-95. 6 when Florida's Child Services shuffled me between homes as if my existence were a scheduling inconvenience. I remember a social worker's voice. "Temporary placement, just for a few nights." Those words stretched into weeks, then months, then nearly a year. When Samuel first visited my foster home, I didn't understand who he was. He wasn't loud or dramatic like the people who said they were interested in adopting kids. He just watched, observed. Then he crouched beside me and said, "You deserve stability, Maya. I'll make sure you get it." I didn't know then what that promise would cost him. He pushed for custody. He fought the courts. He battled red tape. He placed me with his son, my future father, and his wife Elaine, a tidy suburban home in Tampa Palms with neat hedges and matching patio furniture. But on my first day there, I sensed the shift. Evan stared at me like I was a stray cat someone forced him to pet. Marissa, his sister, asked my mother,
Does she get her own room? My mother gave a tight smile. For now. For now. I'd hear that phrase for the next 15 years. They gave me a tiny room meant to be a storage closet, a narrow bed, a dresser missing a handle, a lamp with a crooked shade. Meanwhile, Evan's room looked like a mini electronics store. Marissa's room looked like a princess suite. The Lockwoods were polite enough in public, but in private, I became a ghost with chores. Take out the trash, set the table, clean the bathroom. You should be grateful. Always that last one. When holiday cards went out, my name was never included. When family photos were taken, I was the one asked to hold the camera. You blend in oddly, my mother once said. You don't match the rest of us. They weren't trying to hurt me. That's what made it worse. Their neglect wasn't loud. It was woven into everyday life like wallpaper you forget is ugly. In high school, when I won a statewide writing competition, I ran inside excited, only to hear, "That's great, sweetie, but Marissa has a recital tonight. We don't want to be late." My trophy sat on the kitchen counter for 2 days before someone moved it to the garage junk shelf. Evan's soccer trophies had their own sculpted glass case. College was the same story. They helped Evan apply to top schools, helped Marissa tour campuses. Me? "Oh, honey," my mother said, "your grades aren't competitive for a 4-year university. Maybe try community college. Something less overwhelming for kids with your background." My background. A polite way of saying, not really one of us. Over time, I didn't stop fighting, I stopped expecting. But I didn't know that buried beneath their neglect was something darker.
A truth even Samuel didn't know yet. A truth that would become the foundation of my revenge. After the restaurant incident, I went home without speaking a word. The night air was thick, pressing against my chest like a wheat. I drove with my hands gripping the wheel until my knuckles turned white. When I reached my apartment, I didn't turn on any lights. Darkness felt truthful. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, legs folded beneath me, and stared at nothing. And then, without a single plan, I stood up, opened my laptop, and began searching through the files I'd saved over the years. Things I kept because I didn't trust my family, not even then. Old email threads, bank statements, random envelopes they asked me to drop off at the bank, PDFs of tax documents I accidentally received, receipts from a joint account my name had once been attached to, back when they pretended to involve me in family responsibilities. I moved them all into a single folder. Hours passed. Midnight bled into 1 a.m., then 2 a.m., then 3. When I opened a scanned trust document filed shortly after I was adopted, my breath caught. My biological parents hadn't left me with nothing. They'd left me a trust fund, not extravagant, but substantial. Enough for private education, enough for a first home, enough for a secure future. More than enough. My hand shook as I scrolled through the line items. For 22 years, my adoptive parents had drained the trust, slowly, quietly, deliberately. Withdrawals disguised as home improvement, education expenses, health costs, childcare, extracurriculars. But none of those descriptions matched my life. Evan's private soccer academy paid from my trust. Marissa's dance academy tuition paid from my trust. A family trip to Barcelona marked as therapeutic developmental travel. Their kitchen remodel listed as home safety adjustments. Thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, gone. Not by accident, by choice, by design.
like I was a resource to be mined, not a child to be raised. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I felt something colder, a quiet, calculated rage. Then, a knock on my door. 3 soft taps. I opened it to see Samuel, leaning on his cane. His eyes flicked to my laptop, to the scattered documents, to the open folders. I suspected, but I didn't want to believe. He sat beside me, slowly, the weight of his age bending him. We talked until dawn. He wasn't angry at me for uncovering it. He was furious at himself for missing it. When he stood to leave, he touched my shoulder gently. "You won't handle this alone, Maya," he said. "And we will not destroy them. But we will correct what they've taken." He left my apartment at sunrise. I started planning. Not revenge, not yet. Truth first, revenge comes second. 2 days later, Samuel called for a family meeting. Nobody questioned him. He was the Lockwood patriarch. His word was law. Back at Linden House, the same velvet chairs awaited us, the same lighting, the same polished silverware, but the air felt different, sharper, charged. My mother kept glancing at me like I was an uninvited guest. My father kept glancing at Samuel like he feared what was coming. Evan scrolled on his phone, bored and arrogant. Marissa dabbed at imaginary smudges of makeup. Then Samuel stood. "I won't waste time," he said, placing a leather folder onto the table. He opened it slowly, deliberately. A series of documents slid out, fanning across the white tablecloth like a deck of very expensive, very incriminating cards. "What is all this?" my father asked weakly. "Proof," Samuel said, and he began to read. One withdrawal after another, one forged description after another. 22 years of financial theft. My mother's face drained. My father tried to speak, but Samuel raised a hand. Not yet. He turned to Evan, to Marissa, to Elaine, to Daniel. "You all benefited from funds that were never yours." My mother swallowed hard. "We didn't know." "Don't lie to me," Samuel said quietly. "You knew the trust was for Maya. You chose not to use a single dollar for her. You used her inheritance to privilege your biological children, while denying her even basic necessities." The table stayed frozen. Then Samuel slid out the final document, a fresh embossed legal form, his new will. "I have amended my estate," he said firmly. "Everything, my assets, my home, my investments, my properties, will go solely to Maya Harper." Marissa gasped. My father's mouth fell open. My mother reached for the document with shaking hands. Evan erupted. "You can't just cut us out. We're your family." Samuel turned his gaze on him, hard and unyielding. "Family is defined by conduct, not DNA." Then he added the line that cracked Evan's composure. "You torment a child under my name, and you expect a reward?" Evan slammed his fist on the table, but the noise died instantly under Samuel's stare. "Sit down," Samuel said, and Evan did. The lawyer, whom Samuel had prearranged, leaned in. "The amendment is irrevocable. Filed, verified, effective immediately." My mother's eyes filled with tears, not remorseful tears, but frightened ones. What happens now?" she whispered. "Now? Now you face what you built." But I let Samuel answer. "That," he said, "depends entirely on Maya." All eyes turned to me. For the first time in my life, I didn't shrink. I didn't apologize for existing. I didn't flinch. I folded my hands and said, "I don't want revenge." I saw their shoulders relax, but I do want distance. Their relief evaporated. "I want no further involvement, no favors, no debts, no obligations. We are done." And with that, I stood and walked out of Linden House. I didn't look back. Not once. The days that followed were quiet in a way I had never experienced. Not empty, peaceful. I moved into Samuel's estate shortly after. He insisted. This house was always meant for someone who understood value, he said. We spent the next few months working side by side on his foundation, the Harper Lockwood Initiative, a program for foster children transitioning into adulthood, financial literacy, legal protection, educational support. I want you to run it one day, he told me. I didn't know one day would come so soon. Samuel passed in his sleep late that summer. The funeral was small, solemn, silent.
The Lockwoods were there, but they stood apart like guests at a stranger's memorial. They approached me afterward with lowered eyes and hesitant steps. My mother whispered, "I'm sorry." My father said, "We should talk sometime." Marissa murmured, "I miss you." Evans simply said nothing. For the first time in my life, I felt no need to reply. Their words were for their conscience, not for me. Life moved forward. I ran Samuel's foundation with every ounce of his quiet strength. Kids who walked in with haunted eyes walked out with resources, confidence, dignity. And one evening, while locking up the office, I found myself standing by the window, watching the sunset paint the sky gold. Samuel once told me, "Freedom isn't loud, Maya. It's calm. You'll know it when you feel it." He was right. For the first time, I wasn't waiting to belong. I had carved a place in the world with my bare hands. I didn't need the Lockwoods' approval, or their apology, or their history. I had my own. And in that quiet, warm moment, I finally felt like someone who wasn't an add-on. I felt whole.